And welcome back, Mindsetters. I hope you had a nice little break there. And you're ready, you're raring to go. You've got your pens and pads out, and you've been making notes, and you're about to make some more notes. Because, yes, grade 11s, I know you guys have a lot of work coming up. So make sure you're making these notes. Very important. But we're going to hand over to Elsa, who's going to continue. Take it
Thank
away.
you. All right, let's carry on. Right, guys, as I was explaining to you now, where the pollen is produced, the pollen will be dispersed, landing on the female reproductive organ, whether it's by insect, self-pollination, or wind. All right, let's look at the female part now. The female part, it's like a beautiful pink color, consists of 3 parts. First of all, the stigma, the style, and the ovary. That is the female part, stigma, style, and ovary, collectively known as the pistil. I'm going to give you the proper name. It's a gynoecium. A way to remember this, yes, females, gyne, all right, so that's a way to remember the female reproductive organ. Inside the ovary, we have got ovules, okay, and the ovules that's where the egg cell is. So what's going to happen here? The pollen grains are going to land on the stigma. They're going to grow a pollen tube, and the pollen tube is going to go right down, taking the male sex cells right to the ovule, and this is where fertilization is going to take place, is inside those little ovules. And then what's going to happen, briefly explaining to you, is that these ovules will change into seeds. Okay, the whole ovary is going to turn into a fruit. And then all these petals and sepals and stigma and style will fall off because they've done their function. And then what's going to grow out of this flower now is, for an example, an apple or a pear or the fruit that you eat. It can either be edible fruit or dry fruit like a bean or a pea pod. Okay, so you're actually then looking at, when you eat fruit, you're looking at the ovary that was inside the flower of the plant. Okay? Right, I need to go through this alternation of generations. Now, we've done alternation of generations, so I'm going to do this quite quickly. Sporophyte generation, that is the flower. Anthers, that is where the microspores and the pollen grains. Okay, so microspores inside the pollen grain, very much the same word. They land on the stigma. A pollen tube will grow down, as we said now. Okay, all right, so we're going to have then the pollen tube that grows down. Okay, so we have meiosis as well, producing the egg cell. Okay, so we're going to have that. All right, so now we have the pollen tube. The pollen tube now is going to grow right into the female ovule. We're going to have fertilization taking place. Okay, after fertilization, we're going to have a zygote. That zygote is going to develop into an embryo, which is inside the seed, and that seed is going to germinate, producing the sporophyte generation. So now, where do we have now the line that we have to draw? As I said, meiosis and fertilization. So there we have the sporophyte generation, which is 2N, or diploid generation, that side. And this side, we have got the haploid generation, which consists of the egg and the sperm cell. All right, so the two fuse together, and it forms the new 2N generation. Make sure that you know this alternation of generation and that you apply it to all the different plants that we have done and learn it very, very well. Okay, that now brings us to a summary of all the plant groups that we have done. This is the way to go now, grade 11. So once you've studied from your bacteria, your mosses, the ferns, gymnosperm, angiosperm, go and make yourself a big table to compare. What we've got here is a comparison between the bryophytes, all right, the bryophytes, the pteridophytes, the gymnosperms, and the angiosperms. So those are our 4 main plant groups. Those are the features. Okay, these bryophytes, as you can remember, small plants, they were called a thallus. No true root, stems, and leaves. The ferns did have large leaves. They did have roots. They also had stems underground. Can you remember the word rhizome? Underground. Okay. All right. Gymnoangiosperms, they've got true leaves, true roots, vascular tissue, none in the moss, xylem and phloem, xylem and phloem, xylem and phloem. In these ferns, gymno and angiosperm. Fertilization, moss depends on water. Remember that? Ferns depend on water. These two, independent on water. They had pollen tubes that took the male cells to the female cells. Seeds or spores, spores in the moss, spores in the ferns, seeds that are not enclosed, and seeds that are enclosed in the seed-bearing. So these are seed-bearing plants. Okay, so this is a very, very important table, and it's a summary of all the plants that you have done. So I would suggest, like I said now to you, to make a comparison, make your own table. You can even add little pictures. I believe that if you study with pictures, so you can add a little picture of the bryophyte. So I would go and I would draw a little moss plant there. All right. I will go now draw a fern plant. You remember all the little leaves on a fern plant. I will take a gymnosperm. I'll draw, for example, the two cones. Okay, there's a male and a female cone, and then I'll go and draw a beautiful flower with all its petals. So pictures tells the whole story of more than words can tell. So make yourself a whole table, add in a column for pictures. Okay, and then you can also add in maybe the alternation of generations, which is the detail of these plants. Okay, grade 11s, I'm telling you good luck with this section on plant diversity, and hopefully by next week I'm back to do the animal diversity. So good luck for your test if you're writing one soon. Thank you. Thanks, Ty.
Okay, no problem. Mindsetters, thank you so much for getting your questions in. And I know, we wanted to get through as many questions as we could, but unfortunately there's so much content, so we weren't able to get through all of them. But doesn't mean you stop posting. Mindsetters, do not forget, you always need to help each other out. So if you do see another mindsetter in trouble, make sure you help them out if you know the answer. Because as we said, we won't be able to get through all of them. But on that note, Mindsetters, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today and for posting on the page. And I want to thank Ilse for that. And on top of that, Mindsetters, we're going to see you next time. Cheers.